You know, the Jets have been unusually quiet this offseason, and that's on purpose. The previous eras of flashy draft picks and even flashier trades and trying to get rich quick is over. The Jets are embracing the slow build now, doing it the right way, the sustainable way. And so far, it seems like it's working. If you missed everything that happened with the Jets this summer, don't worry about it. Most people did, especially if you don't live in Long Island, but that's why we're here, because we're going to catch you up. This is day 26 of the annual Bootleg Summer Series. And in each one of these episodes, we use film, analytics, salary cap breakdowns, and all manner of nitty-gritty football nerddom to answer the three questions that make up the central pillar of this series. What was this team's identity before? What do they want their identity to be now? And what does a successful 2025 season for this team actually look like? I don't think Jets fans or even the Jets themselves honestly expect a Super Bowl this year. They just want to try to heal from past mistakes in 2025 and maybe set a foundation for the future. So today we're going to talk about all the different ways that we think they're going to do that. Jay, Autumn, Anthony, roll the intro.
There's a new sheriff in the Big Apple. His name is Aaron Glenn. The Jets have been a team wandering in the wasteland for more than 20 years now. They haven't won their division. This is a team that's needed a leader that believes good enough is not good enough. And Aaron Glenn is that and then some. There's a lot of work needed to redo this team. It's not all going to get done in 1 year, but the players that are left on the roster at the end of this year are going to know exactly what their coach expects of them to win. So, how much progress do you think they're going to make this year, Brad?
I will say this. I don't think the win total is going to be that different, right? Like we talked about the Patriots yesterday, talking about like a dramatic improvement from where they were to where they're going to be. You know, at least doubling their win total is a pretty common expectation for New England. I don't think I could say the same thing for the Jets. You know, going from a 5-win team to a 10-win team overnight doesn't sound realistic for where this club is right now. But I will say, even if they just get like 2 more wins to the total, right? They turn into like a 7-win team, maybe even an 8-win team, and they're just solidly mid. I think the key difference between this year's Jets and last year's Jets is just going to be how hard they are to put away, right? This is going to be the kind of team that even if their win total doesn't jump by a lot, they are a more serious threat. They are a more well-rounded team. They are a more annoying team to play, quite frankly, because I think there's a lot of things that they do well, even if they also have major holes. They have a good offensive line. They have a good defensive line. They're going to be able to run the ball. Justin Fields is going to make their run game, like this might be the best Jets run game since like the late 2000s, right? When they would just mash you. You know, like they have a top tier corner, they have a top tier receiver. Like there are pieces here. And even though I think they are still quite far away from being at the top of the AFC, you know, even like a division round type of team, they're not close to that. I think overall the work they've done this offseason, it'll look like an incremental improvement because they're going to go from like 5 wins to 7 wins. But I'm telling you, how this team looks and how this team plays will feel far more night and day because they're a more complete team. I think they're going to be a tougher team. They're going to be a better coach team. So I think Jets fans can take solace in that. You know, the lagging indicator is going to be the win total here, but like as a team, they will be better.
They're fixing their foundations, and that's more important. It isn't the sexiest work. It's dirty. It's usually underneath the big, pretty house, but all the best houses have really good foundations, and the Jets didn't, and it's going to take a bunch of work to remake that. My favorite thing about the Jets so far this year, since Aaron Glenn took over as the head coach, is the tone coming out of that building. I loved the way he handled the Aaron Rodgers talk.
You making him fly across the country just to get let go? That was a choice.
It was the public admission of, I know what this is going to do to our team, and we're simply not going to do that. We're not going to entertain it. it's not where we need to go. It wasn't histrionics. It wasn't anger or showmanship. It's like, no. It's a hard no. We're good. We know what we're doing. We're going in a different direction. We're not doing that. And I was like, yes, some sanity in the approach, not this circus that goes on for 3 or 4 months and holds your team over a barrel with a lot of uncertainty. Just a hard, that's really not what's best for our franchise. So we're going in a different direction. Thanks. I loved it.
It certainly does feel, to your point, the emphasis from Aaron Glenn has been, we are not going to be a circus. We are not going to be the story. We're not going to be in the media. Like, you haven't heard anything about the Jets in the national media this summer. Everything this offseason's been so focused on, the typical big dogs in the AFC, Buffalo, Kansas City. People talk about Cincinnati a lot because of everything that was going on with them as far as, their contract negotiations. Obviously, the Cowboys are a big story. People have been talking a lot about the Bears with Ben Johnson's arrival. Like, nobody's really been talking about the Jets, even though there is a lot of new there. You have a new quarterback in New York. When's the last time the Jets got a new quarterback and nobody talked about it? But I think that's by design. Like, they are trying as an organization to be quiet. They are trying to fly under the radar. They are trying to be ignored so that they can rebuild in peace and, establish a winning culture. Basically the only time we heard anything from the Jets this summer, at least from a national perspective, is like, oh yeah, remember those 2 rookies of the year we drafted a few years ago? We just gave them a bunch of money. And that was it, right? So they ripped the Band-Aid off with Aaron immediately. They didn't let that linger. They didn't let it become a thing. It's just, Aaron's gone. We wish him well. It's like they weren't throwing mud at him. It's more so we just wish him well. And then, we're bringing in Justin Fields on a reasonable contract. We think Justin, can be the starter for this team and be an effective starter for us. It gives him an opportunity to show what he can do in an environment where he's the unquestioned starter. And it just lets them be a quiet rebuild. And I think for Jets fans, that's probably refreshing at this point because they've been in the spotlight over and over and over again. Not just with Aaron, but during the Zach Wilson era, it's like, okay, we got a young quarterback we're trying to bring along. Everybody's just been talking about the Jets for years. And now nobody's talking about them. And I mean that in a good way. So I think Aaron Glenn's doing it the right way. They're building a culture that is, quietly confident, even though they know they have work to do. And I'll tell you what, it just feels different.
I would agree. It does feel different, and it needs to feel different because what they're trying to change is last year's results. Again, this was a 5-12 team, 3rd in the division, 3-5 at home, 2-7 on the road, 2-3 over the last 5 games. When we talk about their effectiveness summary, we just assign their league ranks for how they ran the ball, passed the ball, defended against the run and the pass, scored points, or kept points from being scored. Passing offense, 18th. Again, there's been a lot of mud slung at the Jets passing game from last year and Aaron Rodgers' performance in particular, but if you went back and watched it, it was about 18th. It was average. It was not terrible. It was not the heights of previous Aaron Rodgers, but 18th feels about right. Rushing offense, 20th. That felt a little bit low. I would say that was more on the offensive line than it was on the running back room, but I believe that we will see that number increase, especially with Justin Fields helming this team. Pass defense, 26th. We'll get into the reasons for this, but that's not a great ranking, and you're not going to win a lot of games if you're 26th in pass defense in the NFL. Rush defense, 21st. Points scored, 24th. Points allowed, 20th. So if you add all those numbers up, divide by 6, we get their bootleg power score. They were 23rd overall. So not the least powerful team, about a third of the way up the rankings, but certainly not a team that most other teams, to your point, feared when they came to play. And I do believe they'll have more of that fear this year. They're going to be a tougher out. They're going to be a better coach team. And if I need to borrow a phrase, they're going to bite you in the kneecaps.
That's an excellent tee up for me because my primary note when talking about this team, both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball, is they are Lions East. If you're looking at the staff they've assembled, the types of schemes I expect them to run, it's just going to look like Detroit, but a couple years ago when they were still, or maybe 3 years ago, when they were still trying to like establish everything and build the culture and flesh out the roster. This just feels like the Lions all over again in the early part of their journey. And I guess I'll start with the offense here. The one thing that the Jets currently have that is maybe ahead of schedule compared to where the Lions were when they first started their rebuild is the offensive line. Like even last year, before the addition of Armand Membou, pressure rate allowed was 22.5%. That was sixth best in the NFL. It's like their offensive line was already good in pass pro, and now they just added a freakishly athletic tackle that's just kind of solidifying an already good offensive line. And really the only thing that they had to improve up front offensively was just average yards before contact per attempt, which I do think Membou helps that because, again, great run blocking right tackle. So, that's kind of like the strength and the identity of this offense is we're going to run and run and run. We've got Breece, we've got Allen, like these two big, heavy backs. Although they say Breece is going to be more like the Jahmyr Gibbs slasher, where Braylon's going to be, the hammer, like David Montgomery. Like Breece is also kind of a hammer too. So like it's just kind of two big physical backs. But they're just going to run the shit out of the ball. They're going to be super heavy in outside zone, just like Detroit was, because their offensive line and their running backs are built for that. They're going to be play action heavy. They're going to be under center heavy. And we know Justin Fields can do that. Like he's been in the league enough years now, and especially looking at how Pittsburgh operated their offense, where they were under center heavy and they were play action heavy. Like we know Justin Fields can do that. And it's going to look like the Lions schematically. Do I think they're going to execute it as well as the Lions? No. But also, who executes that kind of offense as well as the Lions do? Nobody. So that's kind of an unrealistic standard anyway. But I see the vision schematically. Like they're going to run the ball if they can 28 times a game. They're going to try to throw it less than 35. In fact, they'd probably prefer 30. And, they're going to play tough defense. They're going to limit total numbers of possessions. They're going to quicken the game. Each team gets 10 possessions. They think they can score at a higher rate of efficiency than you because they're going to be able to run the ball. And, if they squeak out a 23-20 win 8 times out of 17, like that's a good start as far as rebuilding the identity of this team. And I think that's what they want to do.
5 or 6 times a game, they're going to stress you out because they're going to play with your numbers on defense in terms of making you account for the quarterback in the run game. Most teams in the NFL don't do that. Detroit certainly doesn't do that with Jared Goff, but with Justin Fields, you have a very different athlete at quarterback who is an elite runner, and I don't use that term lightly. We have seen what he can do with his legs, and he can make an NFL field look like the playground where he's the fastest kid. And that is a rare skill set. So I wouldn't doubt that if in turn to limit some of those possessions where you want to not be passing, they put the ball in Justin Fields' hands on designed run plays and say, go get us a chunk, because if you can get an explosive in the run play, it's just as good as getting an explosive in the pass play. Yes, it puts a little more damage on Justin Fields, but he is physically prepared to take that at this point. And their backup can run a little bit too, so they're not going to need to change their offense that much if he gets dinged up. And it's just one more thing to prepare for, and NFL offensive coordinators love to create one extra wrinkle that you as a defensive coordinator coming in have to spend some hours on in practice preparing for. Hey guys, this isn't like the other teams. Justin Fields can run it a little bit. We need to be ready for it. And I think they'll lean on that.
So if you've been following along in this series so far, especially if you're a patron and you've seen all the companion infographics that we've released for every single team, you saw the Steelers won, and they're a very outside zone heavy team. They were 10th in outside zone overall. Under center specifically, they were 9th in outside zone. Then we had the Lions episode after that. If you're looking at their outside zone rate, they were 3rd, and under center, they were also 3rd. The Jets last year were in that same territory. I understand it's a different staff, but they were in that same territory. Overall outside zone rate, 6th. Under center outside zone rate, 5th. So this is not going to be a overall of a new run scheme compared to what Justin Fields is used to and also compared to what this offensive line and these running backs are used to. The key difference, though, to your point, is Aaron Rodgers is old and can't really run, and Jared Goff has never really been hypermobile. And so the ways in which defenses play these outside zone runs for Detroit and for the Jets last year is they felt comfortable sending the backside edge to just chase the heel line of the tackle. Typically he's going to be unblocked unless they're like locking the backside, but typically he's going to be unblocked. And his job is to chase down the running back from behind because the quarterback isn't really a threat to keep it back the other way. And if you see how teams played against Aaron and against Goff when they were doing these hard fakes on outside zone, wildly different than how teams played Justin, because Justin is such a threat that if you were the backside edge playing against the Steelers' run game in the first 6 weeks of the season, you were not going to chase the running back. You were going to chase Justin. And if you're looking at all the pressures that he took from under center play action, it wasn't just like the pocket collapsing. It was backside edge coming free because defenses would have rather prioritized Justin than chasing down the cutback on the running back. So I think that's going to benefit Breece and it's going to benefit Braylon, because if the backside edge is no longer a threat to hit them when they're cutting back on these outside zone runs, because defenses are so worried about Justin keeping it the other way and getting explosive, that's kind of how Justin makes this run game better, just by existing. Like, not even by carrying the ball, but just by existing and the threat of him carrying the ball. He might give these running backs a little bit of extra space, when they're slashing, when they're hitting that cut and they're slashing up the middle, might give them a little bit more breathing room to turn something, or to turn nothing into something, I should say. So I think, the type of run game this team has schematically is going to be the same. Its effectiveness is going to go up.
I hope so. I think it could be a lot of fun to watch. I realize Jets fans are sitting at home going, but you're avoiding talking about passing, and we have Garrett Wilson. Yeah, we know. We'll talk about Garrett. He's a well-deserving player of plenty of airtime, but the run scheme being effective and being threatening and having an option, because again, if you play the run that way against Jared Goff, he's never going to turn around, cut it back, and take it up for 25 or 60 and a touchdown. If you start doing it consistently and cheating, he absolutely will. And then your defensive coordinators are going to pull you aside and say, Justin's a threat here. Let the guys on the front side take care of the running backs. You make sure he doesn't do that to us again, because it is game-changing ability, and he will change the complexion of what they can run, when they can run it, and where they can run it from on the field, just because he owns that skill set, and very few people in the NFL do.
I want to touch on the defense also before we move on, because these numbers don't really make sense to me, EJ. Like, if you're looking at pressure rates, again, this is in page 7 of our companion infographic. These are for all patrons. Go to the link in the description below. Use the QR code on the screen. We have 18 pages on every single team. And page 7, our trench efficiency. Wow, there's like 10 episodes I haven't been able to hit that word. Trench efficiency, EJ.
I'm going to stack it up for you. Trench efficiency, and then I'm going to make you say statistics. And we'll just see if you can get through the trifecta.
We could do a super cut by the end of this series of just me fucking up the word efficiency over and over again. So again, page 7, we have our pressure rate generated stat. And this team was 7th best in the NFL at 33%. Like, they were able to generate a lot of pressure because, again, they've been drafting defensive linemen forever, and usually they've been pretty good. And at the same time, they also had arguably the best corner duo in the NFL, at least last year, with Sauce and DJ Reed. I'll at least say top 3, right? Because Denver exists and Houston exists and Chicago exists. Maybe top 4. Pretty damn good corner duo there with Sauce and DJ Reed. And yet, to your point, to the numbers you said earlier, they were 26th in EPA per play as far as pass defense. Kind of weird. Not even kinda, very weird. It feels like this defense consistently underperformed. Maybe firing Robert Saleh 4 weeks into the season or whatever it was had something to do with that, because he's a pretty damn good defensive coach in his own right. And so I look at at the contrast between having a bunch of talent individually that underperformed as a unit, you compare that to Detroit, which lost most of their defensive talent throughout the season and yet overperformed as a unit. And that's coaching. That's Aaron Glenn. That's his impact. As far as styles of defense, Aaron Glenn calls the kind of defense that the Jets played last year. He's just better at calling it than the Jets staff was last year. And I love his adaptability. I would say that's like a hallmark. Beyond just being man coverage heavy and blitz heavy, it was the fact that he was so adaptable in how he leaned into that identity while constantly losing players over and over and over again. Like, okay, first we lost Aiden, then we lost Aleem, we lost Anzalone. Like, everybody got hurt last year. They had 21 guys on IR in Detroit. But Glenn retaining his man-heavy, blitz-heavy identity, but making adjustments throughout the year to account for his eventual complete lack of talent is what allowed Detroit's defense to still thrive. And I look at blitz rate specifically. They were average in blitz rate in the first 6 weeks of the season because Aiden was tearing people's heads off and they didn't have to blitz as much. Then you go to weeks 7 through 12, post Aiden injury, they jumped up to 9th. All right, we're getting less pass rush from him, so we got to dial it up more with pressure. We're still going to be super man heavy. It's one of the man heaviest defenses in the league. And then all of a sudden, okay, now we're losing Aleem, we're losing Anzalone. You get to week 13 to 18. That was when they got to their just fuck it, we're calling zero era, right, in the back third of the season, and they went up to 3rd in pressure rate. His base calls were still the same. Like, it was still cover one as much as humanly possible. And it was still quarters, significant amounts of quarters, right? Because that also allows them to play press man on the backside, typically. But mixing in fire zones, mixing in zero, mixing in man pressures more and more throughout the season as the body started dropping, that showed the kind of adaptability that I think makes for a good coach, right? It's not about trying to retain the identity you had in September. It's about recognizing that your September identity isn't always going to be the same as your October identity. And that's for damn sure not going to be the same as your November identity. And that's for damn sure not going to be the same as your December identity. And if you're lucky enough to have a January identity, month to month, you have to change your approach, even if your core beliefs are the same, as in we don't want to play a whole lot of soft zone here. We want to trust our DBs to man up. Even if your core beliefs are the same, you have to execute those beliefs differently from week to week and from month to month. And I don't think the Jets staff last season did that, whereas Aaron Glenn did, which is why they were a better defense in Detroit despite having less bodies to work with by the midway point of the season.
I remember at the time last year when Robert Saleh was fired, I think it was Robert Mays that said, "What do you really expect to achieve?" Do you think the defense is going to get better? If you're blaming Robert Saleh for all of the ills, specifically that the defense hasn't been good enough, and you fire him this early on, do you really expect that that's going to turn it around and sort of release some pent up, untapped potential? And his point was, not really. It's probably going to get worse. And it did. On the flip side, I'm very excited to see Aaron Glenn work with all the talent that you mentioned that the Jets have been assembling, especially on the defensive line over the years. Guys like Will McDonald, obviously Quinnen Williams still there, Jermaine Johnson coming along, Michael Clemens, one of our favorite pass rushers when he came out. A bit of a different style, and playing with all of these styles. He had some talented guys in Detroit as well, Aiden Chief among them. But then it felt like a little bit more of a drop-off. Here, it feels like you have some guys that are close to that level. I don't think anybody's on Aiden's level because I think he's one of the top 3 pass rushers in the league, undeniably. But there are a bunch of guys in this rotation that I'm really excited to see how he deploys them with that adaptability, with that creativity. And again, the linebacking core, very good. The secondary has been very good. A lot of new pieces that we'll talk about this year, but Aaron Glenn was a defensive back himself. He understands secondary play, so I'm going to give him a pass on that one. I think he'll figure it out, but front to back, this defense is very talented. did not get maximized last year. And again, that's Aaron Glenn's calling card, is maximizing the effectiveness on defense, no matter what pieces he has left on the board. It's going to be a lot of fun on the defensive side of the ball for the Jets this year.
So why don't we get into this coaching staff? Because it's not just Aaron Glenn that came over. Also brought over, guys from Detroit like Tanner Engstrand, who was, if not Ben Johnson's right-hand man, he was at least his left-hand man, because Hank Fraley was probably the right-hand man. But Tanner Engstrand was the passing game coordinator for one of the best passing offenses in the NFL. So I just assume he's going to translate a lot of the stuff that they did in Detroit over to the Jets. They brought in experienced guys like Steve Wilks. Like it's a pretty impressive staff for a first-time head coach to build.
Yeah, it starts with the pairing at the top. Darren Muji is the new GM, and he came in with Aaron Glenn, so they are locked together, which is pretty much the NFL status quo right now. If you are making a regime change, you tie those guys' contracts together, and basically it's kind of like the one big T-shirt for the two kids, like the get along shirt. The GM and the coach need to have the get along shirt, and we're early in that relationship. Early returns are pretty positive, but as with any GM, we're going to kind of have to build a book on Muji and see how he likes to do things, both in free agency and the draft. Again, we've got some early returns, but as we stack year over year, we'll start to build some tendencies that he prefers. Tanner Engstrand, as you mentioned, the pass game coordinator for the Lions for 23 and 24. That's one of the best offenses, the top scoring offense in the NFL last year. He knows his way around a passing game. And again, passing game is preeminent in the modern NFL. Tanner Engstrand knows what he's doing there. Steve Wilks, former head coach of the Cardinals and interim head coach of the Panthers, kind of felt like he didn't get a really fair shake in either one of those opportunities and has continued to get jobs, obviously has respect within the NFL, and comes in to help a defensively minded head coach who is now the guy running the entire show. That's the step up for Aaron Glenn and all coordinators who get to the top step. There's just a lot more to do when you're a head coach. You can't put as much emphasis on your quote unquote old job. Steve Wilks will be able to take up that slack, I think, handsomely. Special teams coach is Chris Banjo. As we get to the notable coaches on offense, Scott Turner is the senior assistant and offensive pass game coordinator. So he gets Tanner Engstrand's title from the Lions, but Scott Turner was the pass game coordinator and the interim offensive coordinator with the Raiders last year through their tumultuous season. But Scott's been around. This is Norv's son again. He's been around offensive football his entire life. Plenty of experience there. Sean Jefferson is the wide receivers coach. He's back with the Jets after a year in Carolina and 2 in Arizona. So he went to the Cardinals for a couple of years, then he went to Carolina, and now he's back with the Jets where he was before. He played 13 years in the league and has coached for 21 already. And yes, he is Titans wideout Van Jefferson's dad. Charles London is the quarterback's coach. He was the quarterback coach with the Seahawks last year. He has 18 years of NFL experience. And when we talk about how good Geno was behind that absolute disaster of an offensive line, Charles London
literally the worst in the NFL, by the way.
Charles London was the guy taping him back together on the sidelines going, "You got it, man. You're actually playing really well." Kind of reminds me of like a cut man or a corner man in a boxing fight. Guy comes back like all beat up and he's like, "Hey man, keep at it. I know you're getting drilled out there, but..."
He's probably a therapist too of like, lock in Geno, we can do this.
You're good, man. You're still good. So he's going to be bringing a bunch of that to Justin Fields this year with the Jets. And then Steve Hyden is the offensive line coach. On the defensive side of the ball, always interesting to me who defensively minded head coaches hire as their assistants as they get their first head coaching job. Chris Harris is the defensive backs and defensive pass game coordinator. Defensive backs coach and defensive pass game coordinator. He spent the last 2 seasons in Tennessee with the exact same role. Former Bears draft pick, played 8 seasons in the NFL for multiple teams, and notably intercepted Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. Eric Washington is the defensive line coach. He was the Bears defensive coordinator last year. He has 21 years of NFL coaching experience. And before that, he was the defensive line coach of the Bills from 2020 to 2023. Aaron Curry, notably, is the linebackers coach. Again, spent some time with the Seahawks, was on the staff with Charles London there. And Dre Bly is on this staff as the assistant defensive backs coach.
It's Super Bowl champion, Dre Bly, to you. I believe he won it with the Rams in that 2000 season with Kurt Warner. Also was an assistant under Aaron Glenn a couple years ago in Detroit, if memory serves. So, has a lot of familiarity with the types of things that Aaron Glenn likes to do, i.e. play man coverage and blitz. So, again, it's a staff that I think, if the goal this season is just build an identity, even if you're not like the best in the league at that identity, just have one. I think this staff is going a long way towards establishing what they want to be. And then 2026 and 2027 is all about, okay, now let's get as good at that as humanly possible. As far as free agency, again, if you want the entire transaction list here, we also have that on our companion infographic for all of our patrons on the Patreon. Another plug here, link in the description or QR code on the screen. So if you want the entire list, that's there. But for notable transactions, we'll just keep it to notable ones here. First up, we got Tyron Smith. And even if he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, there's no way he gets past second ballot, in my opinion. Like he is absolutely a future Hall of Famer, one of the best left tackles of his generation. Constantly dealt with injury issues and yet was still effective year after year in Dallas. Was not his normal self with the Jets. I just think a lot of the injuries over the years, finally caught up to him. But still one of the best ever. In my mind, still one of the greatest left tackles I've ever seen. One of the greatest specimens that I've ever seen on a football field. Like he is just a massive, massive, massive human. So wish him well in his post-playing career. Greg Zuerlein, no longer with the Jets. Hassan Reddick, and that whole saga is done. He is with Tampa now at $14 million a year. Tyler Conklin is a Charger. Javon Kinlaw is a Commander. And Solomon Thomas is a Cowboy. Also want to mention Morgan Moses. He's now going to be the starting right tackle for the Patriots. They definitely needed him a lot more than the Jets did because the Jets were in position to draft their right tackle of the future, and they knew it. Whereas the Patriots needed not one, but two tackles. So Morgan Moses is a Pat. Devontae Adams is now with the Rams. He's presumably going to be the starting X receiver in LA, while Puka's more like the Swiss Army knife Z/big slot. Chuck Clark is a Steeler. And there's one big name that I haven't mentioned yet. I want to take a little detour here and just have a discussion about this last guy. DJ Reed, right? One of the best corners in the entire NFL last year. That is inarguable. I think he was the best corner on the Jets last year. And even though Sauce is younger and Sauce got the bigger contract because Sauce is younger, and Sauce has just been good since he got in the league. When I look at best man cover corners in the NFL, it's like a list of three guys in 2024, right? It's Pat Surtain, it's Derek Stingley, and it's DJ Reed. At least it's outside corners, right? If you want to throw in nickels, sure, Trent McDuffie. But nobody in the NFL had more. Oh, Gonzo. I'll throw Gonzo in there too. But nobody had more pass breakups in single coverage last year than DJ. He actually had more than Gonzo, who was an all-pro. So he had an all-pro caliber year. I think he is a tremendous player. And I understood the Jets letting him walk because they knew they were going to pay Sauce, and they didn't want to invest that much money in both corners at the same time. Like, I got it from that standpoint. But when they let the Lions, there's a lot of Lions mentions on this show, when they let the Lions sign DJ Reed, because they also play a lot of man coverage and they needed another man corner, and then they also signed Brandon Stevens to New York at the same time, that didn't make sense to me, right? Because if the argument is we don't want to pay two corners at the same time, fine, I can accept that. If the argument is we'll pay two corners at the same time, but one of them is going to be Brandon Stevens and not DJ Reed, you lost me, right? And I understand Brandon Stevens is a year younger and he's more physically gifted. Doesn't mean he's a better football player, right? You and I, before recording this show, just went on to the Sumer Sports podcast, and their Sumer score in terms of man coverage was 86th percentile for DJ Reed and 34th percentile for Brandon Stevens. And I'll tell you what, that's being generous to Brandon Stevens. Like, I have never seen somebody be in position so often and yet refuse to turn his fucking head. Like, it is unbelievable to me that they made this move. Like, it's one thing to pay him. It's another thing to have DJ Reed in the building and have the difference in cap hit over the next 2 years be $2.3 million per year. It's nothing. It's less than 1% of the cap. That is the difference in what what DJ Reed is making in Detroit versus Brandon Stevens in New York. And yet the difference in the quality of player for $2.3 million in cap hit is astounding. I cannot justify this move. They are not remotely equivalent as players. The fact that Stevens got $12 million a year to begin with was fucking baffling to me. Like, he is not worth that money. DJ Reed is worth more than what he got in Detroit. So I don't know if there's something else going on here. I thought it was a really, really bad mistake. I trust Aaron Glenn when it comes to DB development, but that's also why I think Azareye'h Thomas is going to be their better outside corner anyway over Brandon Stevens, because Azareye'h is already really good and he fits that scheme. So it's like, if you told me that Azareye'h Thomas was going to be their starting CB2 this year, I would golf clap. I'd say, yeah, great. That's what they drafted him to be. So why did we pay $12 million to Brandon Stevens? Like, I don't get it. Like, I thought they had such a good offseason overall, but that move has pissed me off ever since the day I saw it. I still don't understand it. And Jets fans, you're going to have to help me out on this one. I don't get it.
I can't tell that you're upset.
I've mentioned it like 5 times throughout this series. Right?
I know.
It's the worst move any team has made this offseason. That's saying a lot.
Yeah, that is saying a lot. And when you break it down, especially with the financials, and it came out so close a lot of times in negotiations, and I don't have any inside information about how this negotiation went down. It seems that there would probably be something else, like the player or his agent said, hey, we're taking top dollar, and if you can't make top dollar, we're not talking about it. Or he said, I want out of New York for a certain reason, or I don't mesh with the new coaching staff. I don't know if they ever met as a free agent. He's not required to be in the Jets building after the offseason, so it's not like he would have had a sit-down sort of exit interview with Aaron Glenn. Who knows? We don't, obviously, and it seems like there was probably something else at play, because when you sit down and you go, okay, Brandon Stevens is this player, and DJ Reed is this player, and the difference is $2.5 million, we can sit here as armchair GMs and say, I wouldn't have done that. But at the time when you're putting it together, and you have to do free agency before you have to do the draft. So Brandon Stevens could have been insurance for, hey, maybe we don't get the big outside corner that we want in the spot, or we do have other needs. Again, at the top of the show, I said there's a lot of work to do on this roster, and it's true. It is a good roster, but it is not complete, and they knew they needed those choices in other places. So in a vacuum, no, it doesn't make any sense. Would I rather have DJ Reed or Brandon Stevens? DJ Reed, not a question. With all the other decisions that go on, and you never know what gets said from both sides, either the player side, the agent side, the coaching side, no idea. And, I think there was probably a contributing factor there, because the ones we see, the math doesn't math very well.
The fact that, like, the biggest reaction to the signing was Ravens fans, because they had to endure what Brandon Stevens put them through last season, tells you a lot. As far as notable retentions, the duo that we all saw coming, I think they were announced like within 2 days of each other. Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson came in the same draft class, won Rookie of the Year for both sides of the ball together. They are the future of this team, just like they've been the present of this team for a few years now. Sauce got $30.1 million. Garrett Wilson got $32.5 million. Considering where the receiver market is at right now, at 40 plus being the top of the market, I thought Garrett Wilson at 32.5 was an absolute steal. Like, that contract is going to age so incredibly well, especially as guys like Nico Collins eventually gets extended again, because he only did like a 3-year baby extension because he knew the market was about to slingshot back up. So like as soon as you get 4 or 5 more receiver deals done over the next few years, Wilson at 32.5 is going to look stupid. Like, I think that's an awesome deal. And then Sauce, again, did he have his best year last season? No, but at the same time, it's still Sauce Gardner. So he's 25 years old. He's been a really good corner since he got in the league. He fits the scheme perfectly. Like, Aaron Glenn, dreams of having corners that are built like Sauce Gardner. So yeah, $30.1 million. I thought that was a good deal as well. Jamien Sherwood brought back at $15 million. That's a very good number for a linebacker these days.
That's an eye-opening number for him.
It's an eye-opening number, but also like linebackers are so severely underpaid that when he got 15 million, I was like, oh, damn, okay, let's go. Like I was happy for him because I didn't think he was going to get that much. Not because he's not worth it, just because linebackers get criminally underpaid. And then Tony Adams also back at 3.26 million, played a little over 60% of their snaps last year. So, spent a lot of money keeping in-house talent, but 3 25-year-olds and a 26-year-old, all well worth it. I loved what they did here.
This is the core of the Jets team. And in terms of Garrett Wilson specifically, this was makeup money. Now, what does makeup money mean? I'm going to give you a list of his quarterbacks over his first 3 years with the Jets.
Oh, please don't. No.
Yep, here it is. So Garrett Wilson has achieved in his first 3 years in the league 3,249 yards receiving. That's 1083 a clip, so over 1,000 yards average, 14 touchdowns, that's 4.6 per year. When you look at that, you might say 32 million. God, he doesn't even score 5 touchdowns a year. Okay, here's the nuance we love to bring you. Wilson's quarterbacks over that time: Zach Wilson, Mike White, Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers, and now he gets to play with Justin Fields. But if you can create 1,000 yards a year in the league from the time you're a rookie with Zach Wilson, Mike White, Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, and what's left of Aaron Rodgers, yeah, 32, totally fair.
Dude, that's like when DeAndre Hopkins was getting Pro Bowls and All Pros with like Brock Osweiler and Tom Savage. Like, people don't realize how good Garrett Wilson is because of those names you just listed. And, Justin Fields, has he had his issues? Sure. But he's also better than he was when he was a young quarterback in Chicago. And this is arguably the best environment that Fields has ever been in. Like, if I look at combination of offensive line, coaching staff, and receiver to throw to with Garrett Wilson, has Fields ever had a situation like this before? I would argue no. So we might get not only the best version of Justin Fields, but that might also give us the best version of Garrett Wilson. For all we know, the Jets are getting a massive, massive discount on 2 productive players that haven't been in the best situations in the early part of their careers. Because Justin, they brought him in at $20 million. You got Garrett Wilson at $32.5. Yeah, $52.5 million sounds like a lot for a quarterback and a receiver, but have you seen what other teams are spending at that combo? Like, that's dirt cheap, relatively speaking. So I'm actually not only fascinated, but excited by this Jets offense, because I think we're going to see some young players, maybe finally show what they can do.
Yeah, and again, the point you brought up is in the relative salary scape of the NFL. If you look at starting quarterbacks and starting wide receivers, number 1 wide receivers, which Garrett Wilson clearly is, and he's demonstrated that, and you add up those salaries and then pair up Fields and Wilson, even with Wilson's recent extension, it's a bargain.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys and the Bengals are both spending close to $100 million a year, like just on their quarterback and number 1 receiver each, right? Because Dak is getting 60, CD is getting 34 or 5, I think, right? So it's 94.5. Bengals, you got 40 for Jamar, and I think it's 45 or 50 for Burrow. Again, we're in the ballpark of $100 million. It's half the price here. Are they half as good as those guys? I'm not saying they are as good as those guys, but like, is it 50%? Like, no, I would say as far as production per dollar, the Jets are getting a pretty good deal here. As for third-party additions, I did mention that Justin Fields is now in town at $20 million, which going rate for a quarterback, $20 million, it's pretty low. Brandon Stevens, I will respectfully skip over the rest of that one. And then Byron Cowart, he played about 30% of the snaps last year for the Bears, brought him in at $1.3 million. I'll mention Nick Folk as well. They brought him in 41 years old to presumably be their starting kicker. EJ, any thoughts on Byron Cowart?
Byron Cowart I highlighted because he's currently penciled in as a starter on the interior defensive line, which was surprising to me, but the NFL being a meritocracy and Aaron Glenn knowing what he likes, is that going to hold through the season over Derek Nottie? I don't know, but initially, if you have any of your starting 11 for under 1.5 million, It's notable. They also brought in Josh Reynolds from the Jaguars. He's also currently slated to start at $2.75 million. If we're talking about value offenses in the NFL, I think the Jets are probably leading right now. And then I know that you want to say things about Andre Sisco. They might not be good things, but I know you want to say things about
Yeah, I respectfully didn't name Andre Sisco because $8.5 million. I was like, I watched the Jags defense last year. I'm not 100% sure if the Jets front office did. Like, I just think I fundamentally see DBs differently than these guys, right? Because we're spending 12 on Stevens and 8.5 on Sisco, and neither one of them could cover in man. And this is presumably going to be a really man-heavy defense. Again, it's Aaron Glenn, it's Dre Bly. Yeah. I trust these guys with DB development, but good God, if they get adequate play out of Stevens and Sisco, like they're the best DB developers in the league at that point.
They might be, and we'll see. And that's what I keep coming back to is Sisco had some higher highs earlier in his career. Last year was not a good year for him. He's coming off a down year. And the Talissarian is only 25, and you've got a former DB as your head coach. They know all that. They saw all that, and they saw something else that they thought, hey, that's worth $8.5 million. It'll be really interesting to see if he can, resurrect his career moving to the Jets with that coaching staff. And if he does, it's a great story. If not, it'll be one of those albatross free agent signings, but they did need somebody to come in and start at safety. And right now, Andre Sisco is going to be one of those guys.
So going from there to the draft, the Jets really set themselves up to take a tackle high in the draft. In fact, all of their free agency moves were just flashing a neon sign saying, we are taking a tackle. We just didn't know which one until draft night, right? Like, was it going to be Will Campbell? Was it going to be Membu? Would Membu even be there? Were they going to do Banks? If all the tackles were somehow mysteriously gone, could we have seen like a Tyler Warren thrown in there? Like those were the two names that were, or the two positions that were thrown out there, and basically the only positions that were thrown out there. It was they're taking a tackle or they're taking a tight end. Like I never really bought the DT talk for them. And they ended up getting Membu. And I'll tell you what, I don't think I've seen Jets fans that happy in a really long time, EJ, than when Armand Membu was sitting there on the clock at 7.
It's amazing what happens when you create a scarcity mentality and then something drops to the pick that you were hoping to get it at. It just seems like Christmas all over again. So round 1, pick 7, Armand Membu, the tackle from Missouri. Physically gifted, very good size, very powerful and athletic tackle. He is aggressive in his movements. That will be both good in the run game and things he'll have to work on in the pass game, because opposing pass rushers are absolutely going to bait him into making some of those aggressive moves and then hit him with very strong counters. He's seen a lot of those again playing in the SEC, but he does have development left to do, both mentally. I'm not going to say physically, because having him develop physically is kind of a scary thought. He's already.
I don't think there's any more juice to squeeze there. Like, that dude's a freak.
Yeah, he is a tremendous athlete. He's going to have to learn how to channel some of that athleticism, specifically in pass protection. In the run game, he is a force. He is going to be able to move people, and he's going to be able to move himself very effectively. So when you're talking about an outside zone team where you're running stretches, you're not going to outrun Armand Membu to the edge with him getting a head start. So I think it's a very good fit. I think Jets fans were rightfully excited when he landed there, and the building was very excited to get him there as well, because they weren't sure he was going to be there. When he was, need lines up with fit, lines up with value. They pick him, and, there's a lot of cheering.
I don't think people realize how many franchises would kill to have the luxury to get Olu Fashanu and Armand Membu in back-to-back drafts. Like, yeah, you have to be bad to get the picks high enough to do that. But that is a hell of a young tackle tandem, right? And it just kind of reminds me of the Chargers, right? Where you get Rashawn Slater, a few years later, didn't mean to rhyme there. A few years later, Joe Alt is there. You get Joe Alt. And now you look at the Chargers, and they had a top 3 offensive tackle duo in the NFL in Joe Alt's rookie year, even while Joe was battling injuries and Rashawn was battling injuries. They were still top 3 in the NFL as far as pressure rate allowed. I think the Jets are going to be, like, this young tackle tandem is going to be that good as well. Now, is Fashanu going to be Rashawn Slater? That's tough billing to live up to. But, like, I think in the aggregate, you're looking at probably a top 5 to 6 pass protecting tackle tandem in the league. That's like, I don't think Justin Fields ever had anything close to that, honestly. Not to mention, like, you still got AVT at guard. You still got John Simpson, Joe Tippmann at center. They just brought in Josh Myers to be their backup center. Like, it is a good offensive line, man. Like, the only thing they were missing was just a high-end starting quality right tackle. By God, they got one.
It's a very good foundation, and Aaron Glenn has seen what a good, strong, young foundation of an offensive line can do for an offense. He walks into a situation that's pretty well there and puts Membou on the board to really put it over the top and say, these are the guys we're going to run with, and we're going to be able to run with most of them for a very long time. It is a good situation, and part of me thinks it's definitely was something that made him sweeter on taking this job than maybe some other ones, is he didn't have a wholesale rebuild of the offensive line to do. He needed to pick a piece and make the rest of it work. In round 2, pick number 42, Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU. This was a little early for me. I'm going to be honest for Mason Taylor. I liked him as a player. I didn't love him. And again, you talked about it. There were rumors that if all the tackles were gone, they might have gone tight end high. As they were able to get Membou, they come back and pick the best available tight end in their eyes in the second round at number 42. Now, Taylor, NFL bloodlines for sure, and really good size, 6'5", 251. Good hands, one of the lowest drop percentages of all draftable tight ends out this year at 1.8, and a good contested catch rate at 50%. I know we say 50-50 balls and people think that's normal. It's usually below that. So good red zone target, pretty fluid runner as well. Not a great run blocker. Again, not a lot of tight ends coming out these days are, but I thought he could have had a lot more production even in the pass game. And I feel like this pick is more about potential than production. I think they maybe think he wasn't used as well as he could have been at LSU. And there is an argument there for sure. But in terms of game changers, and I've heard certain Jets fans talk about Taylor as a game changer at tight end, I don't think he's there yet. Doesn't mean he's not going to be there. Again, this is a pick based on potential more than production.
And I think it's unfortunate that maybe we won't even get to see the peak game changer form of Taylor for a while, because unfortunately, a few hours before recording this, news came out that he had a high ankle sprain, which we know high ankle sprains, they can linger and linger and linger. I don't know if he's even going to be healthy. He'll make play, but I don't know if he's going to be healthy and playing at all this season. Like, that's the kind of thing that typically, like, you don't really get it right until April, right? So that's unfortunate, because I do think that athletically speaking, he's very dynamic physically. You mentioned he's got great hands. As a run blocker, he's a nothing right now. Like, he's really a nothing to me. But if we're envisioning like a big slot type of role for him, kind of like, what we've seen Sam Laporta do. I mean, Laporta is more versatile. He can do more than Mason Taylor. But if that's the goal, like, let's find a tight end that we can put out wide. Let's find a tight end we can put in the slot, and he can actually work vertically for us as a big slot. Like, I could see the argument for Mason Taylor there. Did I think he was the 42nd best player in the draft? No, but I see the vision for the role, to be kind about it. I just don't want him run blocking at all right now.
Yeah, and this is about shoehorning him into a vision of being a more effective pass-catching tight end, because that is his strength. And moving on from a guy like Tyler Conklin with moving to Mason Taylor is really a nod towards we want more production from the actual receiving part, and we think Mason Taylor's ceiling is higher there. Round 3, pick number 73 is Azareye'h Thomas. Big man, press corner out of Florida State. Fits Aaron Glenn's system, and I think he's going to be really excited about having this player in his room and probably getting him on the field early. I'm with you. I would be surprised if by mid-season he hasn't won one of the starting outside corner job. Well, the starting outside corner job.
I was like, well, he ain't beating out Sauce.
Right. There's only 2. He would get the other one because Sauce has got his lockdown outside of an injury for sure. But Azareye'h Thomas, I think, could overcome Brandon Stephens. Again, once he gets his feet wet in the pro game, corners tend to play fairly quickly on the outside. It is a less scheme-heavy position than nickel corner. You have less responsibilities than a guy playing on the inside, being part of a lot more of the run fits. So you can let your natural talent shine. Azareye'h Thomas has plenty of that. He's got length. He's got speed. He's not a burner per se, but his combination of length and anticipation puts him into good situations. You don't see a lot of guys run by him, and I was a little bit surprised that he was still available at the 73rd pick. I thought he might have gone off the board a tick earlier.
So you and I on this podcast do not track training camp stats. And that's for a reason, because training camp stats are meaningless, right? I will say there has been a narrative that has built over the last couple weeks. We're recording this on August 5th, by the way. There's been a narrative that's built over the last couple weeks of like, this Jets offense looks rough. Like they cannot throw the ball. Justin Fields, Connor Hughes tweeted out his numbers for the last 3 practices: 2 of 10, 4 of 16, 2 of 6 with an interception. Like it's bad. And in my head, I'm just thinking, what if the Jets secondary is really good? Like what if Azareye'h Thomas is just a nightmare for these guys? Plus Sauce, plus this pass rush. Like we know the defenses tend to start camp and start preseason ahead of offenses anyway. I mean, I was just at Chargers camp last week, and I'll tell you what, a very presumably potent Chargers offense couldn't do shit out there. Like the Chargers defense was just wrecking them over and over, whether it was the ones versus the ones, the twos versus the twos. Like they couldn't get anything done. So that's part of it as well. But I look at, Azareye'h Thomas and Sauce and that pass rush. I'm like, what if this defense is just really good? Right? Like I don't necessarily hold Justin Fields struggling against this group against Justin, because I think most quarterbacks and receivers would struggle against a secondary that featured all of these big physical press corners. And I'll tell you what, Azareye'h, like there was no DB in this class that was better suited for Aaron Glenn than Azareye'h Thomas. Like as far as smothering, and I mean truly smothering press man coverage goes, he was, if not the best, one of the 2 best in this class, specifically at that skill set. I think he's a great player. The fact that he made it to the 3rd round, I was very surprised. I thought he could have gone off the board easily in round 2, and I was kind of thinking he might sneak into the back of round 1. Like, I get it. He's not the most fluid guy, and he's not even the fastest guy. But as far as tape grade, like, did people get open against Azareye'h Thomas? He was up there with anybody. Like, I thought his tape was fantastic. So I love the pick. Honestly, in my head, I'm just going to switch him and Mason Taylor, and I'm going to justify that more. But I think he's going to start for this team. I don't know when, but he will.
Yeah, yards per reception, one of my favorite stats for cornerbacks. He was second best among the top cornerbacks in this class at 8.3. Only Jahdae Barron was better at 7.7. And snaps per reception, he was also second at 19.8. That is 19 coverage snaps, almost 20, before anybody gets an actual catch on him. So, very good player. Again, 6'1", almost 200 pounds. I think he is custom made for the system and will start sooner rather than later. Round 4, we're into day 3 now. Pick number 110, Arian Smith, the speedy wide receiver out of Georgia. Not the biggest guy, but really fast. Adds a speed element to this Jets offense to really open up things down the field. I don't know where he's going to fit in the overall order. Looks like right now they have him backing up Josh Reynolds, but when you want to dial up a play, Tanner Engstrom's got to play and says, I need that Jameson Williams can opener role. They're going to be able to put Arian Smith in there and say, go run.
I think the vision for the Arian Smith selection, especially this high in the 4th round, was, okay, what if we just take J-Mo and then cut off his hands? Like, what's that worth? 4th round pick? Cool. Dial it up. I didn't like this. I really didn't. Like, he single-handedly ruined how many Georgia drives by himself, not being able to catch the ball. Like, if Azareye'h Thomas went 19 targets without allowing a catch, how many targets did Arian Smith go without making a catch? Might have been higher than 19. So, yeah, speed's cool. Job description is wide receiver, EJ. I would love it if they would draft a receiver that could receive. That's just me.
Yeah, he does not have the best hands. I'm not going to say it didn't feel early, but that was to me clearly the vision. Hey, we want.
Dude, I've seen fucking snakes with better hands.
Yep, we want wheels.
Just blowing right past that one.
What do you want me to say?
I'm
He
trying-
didn't
I'm
catch
try-
the ball well.
I'm trying not to be mean about it, but like,
You're trying.
yeah, this is me. This is me internalizing a lot.
This is me trying. Okay. Well, I think they get back on track with their next pick, round 4, number 130. Originally a pick from the Lions, interestingly enough. Malachi Moore, the safety from Alabama. I was a large Malachi Moore supporter in this draft, and it was because I thought he didn't get mentioned very much. And when you went down, guys that he got mentioned around were guys like Lathan Ransom from Ohio State. And when I look at Malachi Moore and Lathan Ransom, I saw a superior player in every facet in Malachi Moore, who just didn't get a lot of press. So I checked in with a bunch of friends like Jordan Reed, who's the ESPN draft analyst, and I said, what's your take on Malachi Moore? We always start with that, right? Obviously, he's watched him, and he said, I think he's being really underrated. I think he's going to be one of those guys that gets into a pro system and maybe doesn't play right away, is going to be a backup, but as soon as he gets on the field, everybody's going to go, wow, he's pretty good at everything. He very rarely makes mental mistakes. He's physically, I would say, good enough. He's not slow. He's not small. He doesn't shy away from contact. He is a very, very sound player in the secondary, and that is kind of the job description for safety. We just talked about the job description for wide receiver. You need to be incredibly solid at safety because if you screw up, it's probably a touchdown. And Malachi Moore is incredibly solid in all facets of the game. I think he is good to very good at everything, maybe great at nothing. But that is an extremely high floor player to be available in the 4th, and for a team that needed safety depth, I thought this was a coup.
I have good news and bad news, EJ. Good news is he's currently listed as a starter. The bad news is this is the second Jets rookie that we've talked about today that also got injured today, 9 hours ago on Twitter. Again, this is August 5th. Malachi Moore walks off the field gingerly, which is most likely related to his injured oblique. So not the healthiest start for this Jets rookie class, but I'm with you. I like Malachi Moore. Good player. Like they had a hole at safety. I would not be shocked if, assuming he is healthy, he does start for this team. And hell, like if Andre Cisco is the bar, he might be the best safety on this team right now.
Yeah, extremely low missed tackle percentage, under 7% for a safety. That is exceptional. And again, snaps per reception, he was second in this class among top safeties. 30.8.
Pretty damn good.
That's a very good number in the SEC. So Malachi Moore, quality player, and a very good get where they get him in the 4th round. Now we drop to the 5th round, number 162. Originally was a Rams pick. And this is Francisco Mauigoa, the linebacker from Miami, who is, I will say, a high variance player, but I think I see the role. And the role is blitzer. He is a gifted blitzer, not a pass rusher from the edge necessarily, but he times the blitz as well as any inside linebacker in this draft. And again, if you can get a guy with a very specific role, who is probably going to start on your team on special teams, but you can see a role in the defense where you bring him in as a pressure specific linebacker, you could do a whole lot worse than Francisco Mauigoa.
I think the other Hurricane they drafted right after him, Tyler Barron, might be an even better pick. Not that I wasn't like a Mauigoa detractor or anything like that, but like when they got Tyler Barron in the 6th round, that's when I was like, oh, now we're cooking again, because it's not often you see an edge as big and athletic as Barron, but also as refined as Barron and as productive as Barron that falls all the way to the 6th round. I thought that was a great pick. Like edge wasn't even it was a need, but not like a massive need for this team. But like he's immediately going to be an effective player in the rotation. I thought he could have been gone 2 rounds before this, like even around where they ended up choosing Malachi Moore. Like that's where I kind of started to think Tyler Barron was going to come off the board. So to get him at 176, I thought was awesome. I think he is absolutely going to make this final 53. And I think he's going to be a key contributor to them as like DE4, I guess it would be, maybe 3.
Yeah, I see Tyler Barron as a heavy-handed edge setter with really good size who can control one end of the line, and you can work stunts and games around if you want to. Not super dynamic as a pass rusher. That's why he was available in the later rounds. I would have opened up his window maybe a round earlier, end of round 5. They get him in round 6. I think that's good value, and he is going to be able to come in and just eat downs on this defensive line. That might sound like, taking up space, but it's an important role on the defense. You need to be able to do it, and he can do it very, very well.
And when we say down eater, by the way, like it's not an insult. It's more us saying that the drop off between whoever is the starter and whoever is the backup is not as catastrophic as you might think. Like down eater means that we're comfortable with them being on the field, eating downs and not being a liability while the starter's getting a blow on the sideline. Well, maybe that's a bad way to phrase it. Getting a drink. How about that? I'm sorry. We're like 25 teams into this, EJ. I'm sorry. My brain's mush. What do you want? You know what I mean?
I do. Oh,
He's a good player. That's what I'm trying to say. Let's get to the UDFAs. All right. Notable UDFAs here. Donovan Edwards, the other Michigan running back. Brought him in to compete for the RB3 job here. More likely, I think he's going to be on the practice squad because looking at the backfield is presently constituted, unless they're carrying 4 running backs, which maybe they will. Depends on special teams value. But Kenny Nwangu's are already there, who is a good special teamer. You got Isaiah Davis. Obviously, you got Braylon, and you got Brees. So competition is stiff. We'll see how that shakes out throughout preseason. Brady Cook, they brought in from Mizzou to compete for their QB3 job. He's competing with Adrian Martinez. Tyrod's the backup. And then we got Dean Clark, safety out of Fresno State. We've talked a lot about how safety has been a hole on this team, so he's got an opportunity to compete for a job here. Peyton Page, I also thought about bringing up, but he's such an undersized IDL, and his physical profile is so not normal that I was like, I don't know if he's actually going to make the team, but like he's fun. Like you can see the wrestling background every single rep. He's just not very big.
Yeah, I like Dean Clark a lot out of Fresno State. They also got Jordan Clark, the cornerback out of Notre Dame. Again, if you've got a staff with a head coach who is a former defensive back and understands that, he sees value in these guys. I thought Dean Clark was draftable easily. And I mean, high up in the 6th round, pretty easily. The window opened up. Doesn't get chosen overall. I understand sometimes it's just the way teams board stack. But if you're the Jets and you swoop in and you get a guy like Clark out of Fresno State who's experienced, has really good size, hits, can play high shells if you want to, rotate near the line or back. He has that kind of flexibility. Obviously going to try and make his way on special teams as all lower drafted or undrafted players do early in the league. But if you need to bring in Dean Clark in a 3-safety rotation eventually, he's not going to let you down. He is going to be a very solid player. So I was impressed to see them get him. Brady Cook is to me a dart throw, right? Experienced SEC quarterback that had ups and downs, plenty of both. Let's see what you got. At least it's a camp arm. Doesn't cost you a draft pick. And who knows, maybe you catch lightning in a bottle and he's your developmental QB3. Either way, as a UDFA, it makes sense as a lottery pick.
So that brings us to our final segment. You guys know it well at this point. 7 weeks into this. We have our 3 questions. What was their identity before? What do they want their identity to be now? And what is the goal for this season? Every episode's built off these 3 questions. The identity before was they didn't have one. That's why they were bad, right? They had a collection of talent. They had talented players. They had a future Hall of Famer at quarterback. They had a wide receiver 1. He's one of the best young receivers in the NFL. They had one of the best young corners in the NFL. They have Quinnen Williams. They have pass rushers galore. They got C.J. Mosley, who's retired now also, by the way. Didn't mention him before. They had one of the 6 best pass protecting offensive lines. They have running backs that are good. Like, there's good players here. But they didn't have an identity. They didn't have a culture. It just felt like a bunch of dudes running around on a grass field together, right? Like when I was out there at MetLife for the Seahawks-Jets game, which I was watching with my friends who are Jets fans, came out to visit them in New York. And it was my first Jets game at MetLife. And it was weird, honestly, at first, right? Because that was when the special teams apocalypse happened in like the first half of that game. And like the Jets took a big lead. And we're like, what the hell? The Jets are like killing these guys. And then as the game went on, right, and the lead just started to slip and slip and slip. And you're like, oh, here it comes. This is it. And you just saw a team that didn't have any direction. Like a team that had direction, a team that had culture would have just stepped on Seattle's neck right then and there. Like what Detroit did over and over and over again. Like if they got out in front of you like that, they would obliterate you. And the Jets they couldn't do it. They had no fight. They had no cohesion. Like it was just 22 guys running around on grass. And so when I say what was their identity before, non-existent. I feel like they have one now, right? It feels like the Lions. We're going to be tough. We're going to run the ball. We're going to play man coverage. Are we going to get beat? Sure. But we're going to try. Like we have a vision. We have a philosophy. Like we are going to be aggressive. You want to say biting kneecaps? Sure. Like I don't think Glenn's brought that up, but like it's that same kind of mentality of like, yeah, you might beat us, but you're going to fucking hurt tomorrow. So I think that's what the Jets have been sorely missing, was that kind of mentality. Like, I don't think this team would ever be good without it, because it reminds me of what they were with Rex back in the day. Like, was that Jets team the most talented team in ever? No. Like, they had individually great players. They had Revis. They had an offensive line. Like they had a bunch of really good players, but like it was the culture that Rex brought, the direction that Rex brought, the attitude that Rex brought that turned them into AFC Championship contenders, right? Like that was what did it. And I think Aaron Glenn brings them back to that. Different style than Rex, obviously, but he brings them back to that Jets culture that's been missing. So when we get to the goal for the season, it's not make the playoffs. Like they're not going to make the playoffs. But I think the goal for the season is just take a pound of flesh from Buffalo. Like beat Miami. Reassert yourself over New England, because they're also in the middle of their rebuild, and establish yourself as a team that will not just die. Like you cannot roll over and die. You have to be an obstacle. If you split with Buffalo and just announce that you're here to be fucking annoying and ruin the playoff seeding for everybody else in this division, that's enough for me. We can build off of that. But you can't roll over and die like this team has done over and over and over again. I need to see fight. And if there's one thing I think Aaron Glenn brings to the table, it's fight.
Yeah, they've got to back each other up. They've got to have each other's backs and be the toughest out they can be this year. In terms of wins and losses, that will come eventually, but it's probably not going to come this season. They still need a few more pieces. But if they start playing together, they start playing as hard as they can and never giving up, I know that sounds like 3 cliches in a row, but it is what makes good football teams. They need sand in the pants. They need to not be pushed off their spot. They need to show that they will strain even if they're losing and even after that. And if Aaron Glenn can successfully establish that in New York this season, it is not a lost season. It is a foundational season.
So fun show today. I'm sure there's a lot of Jets fans that are afraid to get hurt again, and I understand you, but I think if you just go into this season with the right mindset and the right expectations, you're going to really enjoy yourself. Certainly a hell of a lot more than last year, because last year you went into the season with a bunch of expectations, and like even if the record was the same, it's different this year, right? If you go into it with the right frame of mind, you're going to feel a lot better about it if you go into this year with the right frame of mind. It's not about winning, it's about establishing a winning culture, which I think are 2 very different things. So if you need reassurance, ask Lions fans in the comments. They'll tell you, like, yeah, it sucked at first, but like you saw the glimmers of hope, and you just got to hold on to that, because eventually you too will be a Super Bowl contender. So Jets fans, thank you guys for sticking around this late. If you're still here, Miami, you're up next tomorrow. This is a really interesting Dolphins team, by the way, because like talk about polar opposite, I would say, of of how we've talked about the Dolphins in the past, where it's like, oh, they're super flashy and they got a bunch of perimeter talent on offense and defense, but the trenches were ass. And I look at the Dolphins now, I'm like, well, defensive line's pretty good and the offensive line should be pretty good. And, you know, on the perimeter, they got no corners, but like in the trenches, they should be really good. So maybe they're actually going to be a better team, even if the perimeter is weaker. Like it's a totally different Dolphins team. So come back tomorrow for that. Really, really fascinating team in a fascinating division. And then we got Buffalo on Thursday. And then on Friday, also if you're a patron, I know this is a long outro, but if you're a patron, we do our AFC East division recap show on Friday where we're picking award winners, we're picking division winner, we're doing bold predictions for the AFC East. So make sure to come by on the Patreon at the link in the description below for that show as well. So Dolphins tomorrow. See you back here, same time, same place.